A Cougar Coaches Show.
More important to decide what you're going to do and just explode and do it. They're very young guys.
They're going to get explosive all of a sudden.
Games aren't won on one day. Games aren't won with one play. Games are won over the course of an entire week.
This is the U.S. Bank Cougar Coaches Show on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. U.S. Bank, proud sponsor of the Washington State Cougars. U.S. Bank, the power of possible. Tonight's show is also brought to you by Northern Quest Resort and Casino, by Zeppos, the home for the Cougar Coaches Show, and by
What an unbelievable weekend we have to discuss with Coach Leach. Coach is coming off the practice field as always. It's great to be back here at Zeppos as the Cougs are up to 14th in the nation. 7 games into the year, 6-1 record, and 3-1 in the Pac-12. And they are going to take on the Stanford Cardinal, always a tough opponent, ranked, and of course so much success under David Shaw. 5-2 now. The Cardinal have 2 losses on the year, one to Notre Dame and one to Utah. Those are their 2 losses. So a couple of good teams they played that they lost to. They're 3-1 in the Pac-12, as the Cougs are as well. This is another key North Division game as Washington State just beat Oregon 34-20. You may have heard. The Cougs beat the Ducks 34-20. ESPN Game Day was here. It was a 6 a.m. start for game day and a 2 a.m. start or so for many Cougs, maybe a 0 a.m. start for many Cougs. They just rolled it right through from Thursday on, and an unbelievable Friday on, an unbelievable day. And I'm told our guy Bjorn Knobloch over there and Jared Prangruber, they do a great job with all the video stuff. There were 13,000 folks to watch Reese Davis join us here with Coach Leach, and who knows how many will join us throughout the year. But really, just the whole week was, the Zeppos was jam-packed, and all the RVs and shoulder to shoulder. I mean, it was just awesome. Let's relive it for a moment. Cougs and Ducks, 27-0 in the first half, and then 34-20 all said and done as the Ducks made that a game in the third quarter. Let's relive it. We'll talk more about it. Coach Leach is en route. Back here live at Zeppo's talking football. Coaches driving right up the hill here. I've got word that Coach will be here in just a second. The Cougs 34-20 beat the Oregon Ducks. As that score is really not indicative of what it was like in the second half. It was a shutout, just a rout in the first half. It was all Cougs, a dominant game. And then it totally flipped in the third quarter. The Ducks came right back. They scored 17 unanswered. They scored 20 consecutively going into the fourth quarter. They kicked a field goal, and then the late touchdown made it 34-20, all said and done. How about Gardner Minshew, who's squarely in Heisman discussions now? A lot of the national folks are talking about Gardner getting invited to New York City for the Heisman Trophy Award ceremony. Candidate for that, 39 of 51 for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. He threw that really early interception. The Cougs were driving early, and he was at the 12-yard line, and he had the one ball that he threw behind Tay, and that got picked off, but that was just about it. After that, Gardner played great. Just didn't have the ball on the third quarter. The Cougs couldn't score because they didn't have the ball, and credit to Oregon for that. Herbert, who's regarded by many as maybe the top pick in the NFL draft coming up at the quarterback spot, maybe, was 25 of 44, 270, no touchdowns, no picks. And he hasn't thrown an interception on the road in Pac-12 play now in over 200 attempts. His last 200 attempts, so he has not thrown an interception on the road in league play for quite a while. It's really impressive. Dylan Mitchell was the Duck leading receiver. Coming into the day, he was leading the nation in yards per game. He was averaging 150 yards a game. He had 47 against the Cougs. He caught 7 balls, but only 47 yards. Really impressive by the Cougar defense. Washington State, in terms of rushing the ball, was pretty effective. James Williams, 9 carries, 53 yards, and Max Borghi carried it 10 times for 40 yards, 4 yards a touch. That's 19 carries between the two of them for just about 100 yards, which is a great ratio. That's 20 carries, about 5 yards a touch, 20 carries, 100 yards. That's what a running team would really hope for. And the funny thing, and I'll ask Coach Leach about this, about the Stanford matchup, is the Cardinal are notorious for being toward the top of the Pac-12 in rushing. Christian McCaffrey a couple years back, Bryce Love just last year, and Bryce Love was the guy who's supposed to have the Heisman Trophy campaign this year. And they're averaging 20 more yards a game on the ground than the Cougs are. That's it. They're second to last in the Pac-12 in rushing. Washington State's at like 70 yards, and Stanford's at 90 yards. And part of that might be because Bryce Love's been a little banged up. He's missed a couple of games, but who knows? I mean, it could be a little bit of scheme, too. Stanford has the leading receiver in the Pac-12 in terms of touchdowns caught, and a big guy named J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He's about 6'3", 6'4". He's really big. He's an excellent player for the Stanford Cardinal. Download the all-new WSU Cougar Game Day app presented by Gus Johnson Ford today. Enjoy exclusive content, maps up to the minute news, live audio, game day offers, and more available in the App Store and Google Play. Download today. Cougs, again, they didn't pick Herbert off, but they did get some good pressure on him, all said and done. They the penalties, they had 5. The Ducks had 6 against him. It was a relatively speaking, clean game. It had its moments, but all said and done, Washington State just played a phenomenal game in the first, second, and fourth quarters. And Coach Leach, after the game, was asked about if he was surprised about how that game-winning touchdown drive went in the fourth, and he said he was less surprised by that than he was by not scoring in the third. After scoring all those points in the first half, he wasn't surprised to get the touchdown to Dez. He was more surprised they didn't get one in the third. It was 25-21 first downs, all said and done. Huge disparity in the first half. Ducks made that much closer in the second. A 4 first down lead for Washington State, which is still obviously very good, but not the huge gap that you would have thought after paying attention just in the first half there. Cougs sacked Herbert 3 times, I should say. The Ducks did not sack Gardner Minshew. He's been sacked 5 times this whole year on all those dropbacks, which is unbelievable considering how many times he's dropping back to pass out of the shotgun. The offensive line, you really can't credit them enough. Dillard, Ryan, Mauangoa, Watson, and Lucas, maybe the best offensive line group in the country right now. Dillard, Liam Ryan, Freddie Mauangoa, Josh Watson, and Abe Lucas. And their names don't get said enough because they don't have a ton of stats that go along with their position. But, boy, those guys have played their tails off. Andre Dillard at left tackle is widely regarded as a high NFL draft pick. I've heard some scouts up in the press box area before the game say that for 2 years now. And he's a redshirt senior. They've been saying that since he started taking snaps a few years back. He has now got 38 straight starts. So he's played a lot of games. His dad's a Coug. His dad played here as well. He's from Woodinville, and Andre's just been great. Liam Ryan and Josh Watson at the guard spots were kind of the question marks. Those were the guys you weren't really sure. Ryan at left guard and Watson at right guard, and they've been fantastic. You lose a two-time All-American at left guard, and you're three-quarters of the way through the year now, and you've allowed 5 sacks in total to Gardner Minshew. Super impressive. He's completing nearly 70% of his passes, 69.8% of his passes, 2,745 yards. So he's nearly a 3,000-yard passer already, 23 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And those numbers are just fantastic. 364 dropbacks. So 364 attempts, 5 sacks. That's it. That's incredible. Yeah, that's really, really impressive. Really good. He's actually the only quarterback in the country with 400-plus yard passing games. He's got 4 games where he's thrown over 400 yards, which is pretty great. Mike Leach comes in here to Zeppos to a round of applause as the Cougs will take on Stanford with another late afternoon kickoff time once again. So not the evening kickoff time, but a later afternoon kick. As for the world's most refreshing beer, 21 meets 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. So, Coach, as we throw this headset on you here, how the boys look at practice? How you doing?
Pretty good. I thought we looked okay in practice. Had pretty good tempo, bounced around all week, and just keep trying to get better at executing.
I saw you spotted you have a jerky package there from Lynn Carmichael, who's now superstitious. Everybody's getting superstitious all of a sudden. Lynn Carmichael is feeding you jerky each week now.
That's a good superstition. It's we need some more superstitions.
That's a pretty good one right there. We got questions. Let's get right to the questions. We've got some write-ins for you here. Which present Coug? That's a good question. Which present Coug makes you laugh the most, and why?
Present Coug player makes me laugh the most.
No, I guess they said also past or present. So who's the Coug that really got you the most?
Pippins is definitely on the list.
Pippins is the guy because of the dancing, right? Or just personality.
That Pippin's outstanding. Although we found out Lamont McDougal's a bit of a dancer.
Really?
Everybody was telling him to tweet some dance he did or some dance he had.
Okay.
And pretty soon he's got like 12,000 deals or something.
Good. Yeah, he's a 300-pounder dancer. He's a little different than Pippin's. Different.
Yeah,
build.
not real tall, but 300 pounds.
Right.
And then I'm trying to think on this group here. Hunter Dale's pretty good. He's pretty funny. Just kind of the whole group together, sort of.
Have you ever kind of developed, I mean, some would say that you're pretty funny. Have you ever kind of developed most would, like a partner in crime kind of player deal where you get a relationship with a guy and you kind of go riff on the guys in the locker room through the years?
No, not really a player.
Coach, maybe, something like that?
Yeah, Drew spends a lot of time next to me, so...
he's a funny guy.
Yeah, so Drew gets a little bit.
Big beard on Drew now.
Yeah, he looks like Fidel Castro. So it's, you got to give him credit. He's got a small Caribbean country to himself. Almost the size of Florida. Yeah. So that's not all bad.
No, that's great weather. Yeah, that's a great deal.
Good weather, mountains, waterfalls, beaches.
Yeah. Hey, question here from the crowd. And this is a little more pertinent, a little more serious football question. Timeouts and reviews can slow the game substantially, but at times there were stoppages in the Oregon game. But does stuff like that affect game momentum? I mean, I guess you've got reviews and then you've got officials conferring, and how do you feel about that with the choppiness of the play, rhythm, momentum? How does that work for you?
I don't care for it. I don't care for it. I mean, on calls you want them to get it right.
Right.
And then, no, the timeouts, hurry up and stop, that type of stuff. I don't know, but then you just get accustomed to it. You get accustomed to it and adjust. It's part of the deal, so you just roll with it.
Kind of use it as an extra timeout.
Yeah, they're not as useful as you think. Part of it is because it's unexpected when they're going to happen.
Right, so there's less planning on your side prior. That makes sense. Bringing the guys over in the huddle there. We're going rapid fire here. What did you think about this? Is kind of way back. You've talked about this a few times. What did you think about the Preakness when you attended? Is Wes Welker the reason why you went?
No, I went with Under Armour. Under Armour, that was kind of their activity. They didn't have a Nike trip. They would go to the Preakness every year. They'd bring all their teams to the Preakness and have pretty good activities there. And when I saw Wes, the time I saw Wes, I think it was the Kentucky Derby. And I'd met up with Under Armour there that time, too, because I know Kevin Plank and Walker Jones, two guys that are pretty prominent there at Under Armour and just good guys. So, yeah, it was fun.
What's the atmosphere at a horse race like compared to a football game?
Well, and then the Patriots, a handful of the Patriots go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I met several of them. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's exciting and a lot of, there's just a part of the, because I coached at Kentucky, so you'd see all kinds of kind of famous people, athletes, stuff like that. So it was a great people watching deal. Then they do up the hats and then
right, big hats.
And then you want to get both dimensions of that. Really, there's three. Up there in the box, I mean, that's exciting, and that's kind of the celebrity spot. The grandstands is probably overall the most fun, especially, if you want to bet on the horses. And then, but with that said, you can't beat the infield. Now, that infield is wild. Yeah. I mean, it's, there'll be beer can wars. Yeah. There'll be a different type of outfits out there. Yeah. One time it rained and just mud everywhere, and still everybody having a good time doing belly slides on the mud in the midst of the whole thing. And but no, it's no trip to the Kentucky Derby's complete or the Preakness without walking through the infield.
I need to go. I've never. It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. Hey, we're going to take a break. We're up against it, and then we'll come back live here at Zeppo's. We're talking football here with Coach Leach. You can call if you want to 866-268-4825 866-268-4825. You can tweet M_Chaz as we're talking football here with Coach Leach on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. Back here live at Zeppo's talking football with Coach Leach. It's the Cougs and the Cardinals. Stanford comes into this one 5-2 and 3-1 in the Pac-12. Let's talk about Lynn Carmichael, who tweets in here to the show. He's asking you, aside from his superstition, Stanford this year at least is averaging 24 points a game. Cougs are way above that at 40, right on the nose. Number 1 scoring team in the Pac-12, number 13 nationally, 40 points a game, really impressive. Lynn asks if you think that will go once again this game. If you think that's going to be the case, I'm not going to put you on the spot for that specifically, but to what do you attribute as you watch Stanford? I know they'd love to score more than 24 a game. When you're watching film on Stanford, what do you see with their offense this year?
Well, they're throwing it this year. But they still take some time between plays, so they use the clock, and we don't. We try to get them in pretty quick, and then. I think it's tough to, compare too many stats or scores, but, I'd rather be on top of the list instead of the second one.
No doubt. Lynn, thank you for the question as always. And Mark from Riverside, and I love to get Mark and Lynn in here because they're such great Cougs. They always come here to the show. Mark asks, and this is going back to last weekend. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. I don't know what you had a chance to see. I know you're super busy. ESPN Game Day, the whole show from 6 to 9 a.m. Did you have a sign in particular? I mean, you've got this. You got the sign in your office. I saw tweeted.
Oh out. Yeah, that these guys they made the sign of me morphed into George Costanza.
Right.
I was kind of hoping for the Burt Reynolds one that they had that was sort of like that, but they. No, they brought it by, had a bunch of pictures, so I signed the pictures. And so, now the sign's with the other memorabilia in the office and, great memory of the game day game. But it's sitting right there.
If you walk in now, do you see the Cougar and then you and George Costanza's body, like right there? How does that...
we got it. We're trying to figure out where to put it. It's a big sign.
It's huge. It's like 5 feet wide. It's massive.
Yeah, it's a big sign, and someday maybe it'll be in the Game Day Museum. Or something.
They've got to do that. I love that. That's a round of applause worthy. Did you see any other signs? The question was if you saw any others. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
I didn't get to see many signs. I was kind of preoccupied with the game and everything, and then there's always some good signs. And our student section has great signs, and then, and that's all part of it. And then I'm sure Game Day, even some more spectacular signs that I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, and some that we probably won't mention here on the air. Hey, Kevin always is tweeting at the show. And I don't know the answer to this, actually. For a road game, I think I do know the answer, but I could be wrong. For a road game, do you ever get out of the hotel to eat? Do you ever sneak out and say hey, I've got a barbecue joint? No,
never. Recruiting, yes, but not. I've got kind of a routine. The whole thing. Well, first of all, Friday's scattered with meetings, walkthroughs, dinner, the movie, and then so I got a whole routine that night, and then during the day, depending when it is, and yes, there is some time if you play at 7 or something. But we kind of jam our schedule later, and so then it's still scattered with meetings and things, and so no, I stay at the hotel.
Kevin, thank you for those questions. Thad writes in here, how do you feel? And it's an interesting retrospective, and I don't know how much you've even thought about this, but last year's team had the hot start, 6-0, 8th in the nation. This year's team, 14th in the country, 6-1. How do you feel like this team compares to last year's team in certain ways? There's a lot of different personnel out there, but is there any comparison? Do you ever do that? What do you think, last year, this year?
Hard to say. We're a little more explosive this year on offense, and then we're playing really good defense like last year's team. Maybe a little more consistent. I'd say we're more consistent defensively. I think we're more consistent on defense this year. The other thing, we may have a little more speed this year. At the receiver positions, some new faces, but also guys that are just been at it for a year, another off season, and and have continued to develop.
One of the guys who comes to mind is Travell Harris, and he maybe had two of the biggest plays of the game. Well, for sure he had two of the biggest plays of the game against the Ducks. He had the 37-yard catch, which is unforgettable, because one of the Ducks for just a moment looked like he may have had that sucker picked off, and he ripped it away. And then he had the 4th and 6 conversion dragging across the field there. What's Travell Harris's evolution? Because we saw the 100-yard kick return. He's got that speed, but we hadn't really seen in a Pac-12 game the receiving ability till Saturday.
He's got really good hands, and he judges the ball in the air really well. And then, and he is fast, and and he is kind of uniquely fast. He's last year at this time, he was a guy that showed flashes, really did some good things, and we thought he'd be a good player this year. As just being more consistent, and he did get consistent over spring and camp. Came into camp consistent, and I think steadily improves.
Really fast. Is he the fastest guy on the team?
No, but he's pretty fast. Let's think of the fastest guy.
Cole Dubats is up there, isn't he? Ken
Dubats is fast.
Yeah, fans don't really know him yet. He's really fast.
Dubats is fast. Jalen Thompson's fast.
Yeah.
Renard Bell's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Once he gets going, Roderick Fisher's fast.
Yeah.
Jameer Calvin's pretty fast. Marcus Strong's pretty fast.
Strong can fly. A lot of speed. Is this the fastest team you've had on the Palouse, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Renard had that was a great little reach out with a touchdown there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of reach outs, but he was relatively safe doing it, and definitely scored. So
in a situation like that, is it your preference to take it at the one, like keep it tucked and take it out at the 1 or 2, as opposed to going for it to risk the fumble?
Well, I kind of think he would have blasted through.
Oh, just go in there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. U.S. Bank, proud sponsor of Washington State Cougars. U.S. Bank, the power of possible. We'll continue taking questions, talking football here with Coach Leach, live at Zeppo's on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. Back here live at Zeppo's talking football with Coach Leach. It is the Stanford week. The Cougs and the Cardinal, another ranked opponent for Washington State. That's pretty typical here in the Pac-12 as you get into the meat of things. Let's get right back into the questions, these write-ins here. Todd wants to ask, have you made any adjustments to improve field goal percentage, kicking game? Blake Mazza there were a couple of blocks. How does that work out? Do you make adjustments? Do you just kind of roll with it and say, hey, that we did the right thing and we'll run that back again? Or do you switch it up? How does that work?
Well, that's a work in progress, you know. One of them we dropped a snap. One of them he struck it low. But you know, we just got to keep getting better. I think he's done an admirable job up to this point. It's a place that we need to improve, though.
He's got a boomer of a leg, doesn't he? I saw him really blast one in practice. It's hard to tell yard lines and exactly how it is on the practice field sometimes, but you can tell when it's good from 50. And he's got that kind of leg, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily with he can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he can.
Right. So sometimes
Well, of course, there is this about it in the NFL. You know, constantly there's guys that struggle a little bit making it 50 yards. And then the other thing is the most difficult field goal I've always thought is in college. In the NFL, is this guy's getting ready to kick one right now on this TV here. I mean, they got the narrow post like we do.
Right.
Both leagues have narrow posts, but they're kicking from the middle all the time.
Right.
And then in college, we have the wider hashes, but still
really
the
good
narrow
point.
posts.
Huh.
High school's got a little wider hashes, but they got wide posts.
It's a really good point. The college kicking game's harder than the NFL kicking game with the wider hash line.
For field goals.
Yeah.
It's indisputably with field goals. And then I don't know where the tipping point is in high school with wider hashes, but they have significantly wider posts.
Did Jack Crane eat his Wheaties or what? 6 for 6 with the kickoffs as touchbacks. He was blasting them out of there.
No, he can really blast it. Yeah, he can really kick it a long ways.
What's the difference in skill set? Kickoffs. I mean, I know it's teed up and everything, but kickoffs to field goals and extra points. Is it just pure accuracy, or what's generally the difference in skill set wise?
Well, it's accuracy. I mean, it's accuracy. You got to be more accurate with field goals. Also, field goals, you have to get it up right away, and you get to take less steps. On kickoff, you get a running start. You get a moving start in field goal. 3 steps, but kickoff, you get as many steps as you can. So the kicker's moving faster when he strikes a kickoff.
You can kind of tell in Lewiston or whenever you're shaking all this depth chart stuff out, like this guy's going to be better for that and this guy's better for that. You can just see how it goes.
Well, you just compare it. You go out there and have him tee it up and
just
do it, Yeah.
It's just
and
that
then,
simple.
if you like what you see, you play him, and if you don't, you don't, and you hope you're right,
Dragicevic, who hasn't been terribly busy over the last couple weeks in a good way because you don't want your punter to be too busy, but when he has had the opportunity, he has been phenomenal since game 1. He's top 5 in the nation in punt average.
Yeah, we like that. I think he's the number 1 punter in the conference. So the best thing is to have the top punter in the conference and don't punt, So we're going to try to keep doing that.
Yeah, Dragicevic, you want the best one, and then exactly to not have to use him. The clock never winds down at Northern Quest, 24/7 gaming, great restaurants and lounges, movie theaters, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. We're always certain to get the hardest hitting questions on here for you, Coach. So Mike Clark wants you to wants a good name, a good strong name for his baby boy on the way. That's important, apparently.
That's interesting. Okay, so there was this. There was a defensive player for Kansas. He is an outside linebacker. One of the a little undersized, but I'm still surprised he didn't make it in the NFL. And if I had anything to do with it, he would have. There's a guy named Nick Reed, played for Kansas, just an outstanding player. And then, talked to his coaches, heard the story about he's playing in a game and had a screw in his ankle. The screw works out of the ankle. At halftime, he gets the screw put back in and taped up and goes in and plays the second half. Extremely tough player. One of the toughest players I've ever witnessed. And so then for Christmas, my daughter and her husband got me. Somehow they tracked down Nick Reed, and they got a picture of him. And I got a framed and signed picture from Nick Reed. which I still have on my dresser in Key West. And so I think they ought to name him Nick.
Okay.
And then I had a quarterback named Taylor Potts, and Taylor sometimes would play a little tentative and stuff like that. And so I go, look, enough of this. I go, all this soft stuff, and, and then, I don't know, there's a player or two that'd go, Taylor, or something like that. And I go, look, we don't want all this soft Taylor stuff that I'm seeing. I go, this week, and I had the equipment guys put Nick on the back of his jersey, and they put Nick, big letters, Nick. Yeah. And, no last name necessary because you're Nick, okay? And then, so he had a great week of practice, and then he came in and says, Coach, am I, because he was always kind of an understated guy, he says, Coach, am I going to be allowed to wear the jersey with Nick on the back of it? I go, oh, no, because the game was on ABC and all this stuff. I go, oh, no, we're not putting Nick on the back. You're not for the game. Yeah. No, I'll never hear the end of it from your mom. I mean, right. Your family members. I mean, they'll kill me if I do that. And then, who knows what the athletic department will do. I go, no, I can't put Nick on it. He goes, well, Coach, you play how you practice, don't you? Because I'm thinking he doesn't want to be Nick, for the game. I'm thinking he's coming in. This conversation is, please don't make me be Nick. And then he goes, well, you play how you practice, don't you? I go, what? I go, so you want to be Nick? He goes, well, I had a good week of practice, didn't I? And I said, so you want Nick on the back of your jersey for the game, is that right? He goes, well, yeah. and then I said, well, I'm not handling your mom. I go, you're calling your mom. You're going to call your mom, and you're going to tell her that you, not me, you want to be Nick. Yeah. For this game, and I want written permission from your mom that that you're going to be a Nick for the game, and. Sure enough, so we play Oklahoma, big letters, Nick.
He did it.
And he had the best game of his career. So we beat Oklahoma by 28 points.
Really? So it said Nick on the back of his jersey.
Said Nick, big letter, Nick.
And did it? Was that the only game? Was that a thing beyond that?
It was in 2009. If you find that game and you look on the back of his jersey, it says Nick. The announcers would talk about Nick, and then Bob Stoops, who's a friend of mine after the game, says, "Look," he says. I'm not happy we lost or anything, but he says, I couldn't help but laugh every time I saw the back of your quarterback's jersey and it said Nick. And, of course, Bob's from Youngstown, where Nick is a highly esteemed name, Youngstown, Ohio, because, they've got a little bit of, just kind of that whole mafia vibe going a little bit.
So did the telecasters, did everybody know why it was Nick?
No, we didn't tell them.
Okay.
No, none of their business.
They just had to roll it. You had thrown me for a loop. I'm out there trying to figure out who Taylor Potts is. It says Nick on his back of his jersey. I wouldn't know.
No, we said, look, we want really tough quarterback. This, somebody tough like Nick. And then and so now I don't know what he thought when it was on there for Tuesday's practice.
That's
but
great.
He seemed happy with it and played like it on Saturday. And I mean, he really had a good game.
Well, Mike, there you go. If you want a big, strong name for your baby boy, Nick is Coach's recommendation. We'll continue live here with Coach Leach at Zeppos on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. This is that portion of the show. We're talking football here with Coach Leach. It's that time where we go through the Stanford Cardinal and talk a little bit about what the Cougs are up against here. Paulson Adebo is a sophomore from Texas, and he's number one in the pack in passes broken up per game. The cornerback here for Stanford. I think he was not playing last year. He's either hurt or redshirt or whatever the deal is. But Paulson Adebo is playing really well this year, isn't he, as you're trying to attack the Stanford defense?
Yeah, their DBs are good. I mean, their whole defense is good like they always are. And, we just got to go out and play the best we can play.
Feels like Elijah Holder's been around forever, the other cornerback on the other side there.
A lot of those guys at Stanford feel like they've been around forever. I mean, it's funny because they'll say senior, then they'll say fifth-year senior. You know?
Yeah. They don't list their redshirt years on there, so they just their academic class is noted, so I never really can tell. Anyway, but Bobby Okereke, their inside linebacker, leads them in tackles. He's got 50 tackles this year. They generally funnel. I mean, this is pretty typical, goes without saying, but Stanford in particular, as I've noticed over the years, their inside linebackers dominate their tackle totals. That's where they try to get the ball to funnel to, or those guys cover sideline to sideline well.
Well, there's that, and then there also some of it's their scheme. Their defensive front will catch the offensive lineman and just try to sustain him from getting down onto the linebackers as the linebackers react to the play and kind of restricted gaps that they're hoping that their defensive line creates.
How much of that have the Cougs done this year with Comfort and Begg and Tago, where Pallur is just getting a ton of tackles this year? He's got 54 already.
Well, Pallur's a good player, and we bring Pallur from all different directions. We generally, not always, but generally send our defensive linemen upfield.
Jihad had a really good game last year against Stanford, and what a classic that was. The late 94-yard drive from Luke in the snow, and then Frankie Louvu with that pick with his dad off the islands, watching him for the first time ever. Got to see him in the snow in Martin Stadium. Stanford hadn't played in the snow in like 80 years. It was like their first game ever in the snow.
Yeah, it was wet snow. It went beyond just snow. That was sleet. And so, you'd be soaking wet, and then the wind would hit you just for good measure,
But that's comfy for you on the sideline there. That's a good one.
Yeah, you just kind of roll along.
Yeah.
But it's, and then, after the game, you kind of wonder what the temperature was. And the temperature isn't just crazy brutal, but it feels like it out there a little bit.
How about offensively? KJ Costello, what do you think of KJ Costello? He's back at QB for them.
Yeah, he's a good player, kind of manages the unit and likes to throw it downfield.
What's the story with Bryce Love, Cameron Scarlett, Trevor Spates? Love is averaging 4 yards a touch. Last time you played Stanford, late in the year last year, he was averaging 10 yards a touch. He was a guy who was looking for a Heisman campaign this year. Been a little banged up, missed a couple of games, but he can always pop that big one, can he? He hit a 50-yarder last year.
Yeah, he's a real sudden guy. The biggest thing is he's fast, but more important than that, he's sudden. He hits high gear right now.
He makes that key cut. Is that the difference? Some guys just see it better.
One cut. He's kind of a one cut guy, and you try to get all your guys to be one cut guys rather than dancers. And he's not really a dancer. He's a one cut guy.
Yeah. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He's got 9 touchdowns this year. 6'3", 225. Big boy on the outside, isn't he?
Yeah, big, tall guy, strong.
Really good receiver. And then Stanford, notorious, always uses those tight ends. They've got 4 more. They always have 4 tight ends that they use, always blocking with the big guys.
Yeah, they love tight ends. That's why nobody else has any.
They've got 4 of them. 6'5", 6'7", 6'5", and 6'4". Their tight ends are always really big. All right, that's our opponent preview. We are up against a break. Got to take it. Cougs and Cardinal coming up on Saturday on the road. We'll continue here live at Zeppo's with Coach Leach on the Washington State IMG Sports Network.
Matt Chazanow.
Back here live at Zeppo's talking football with Coach Leach. It's the Cougs, 14th in the country, taking on Stanford 6-1. You and I have had Heisman discussions about Luke Falk over the last few years. You've mentioned the definition of the Heisman, what defines a Heisman player. When is it too early? When should it be talked about? Do you think it's time to start talking about Gardner for the Heisman? Do you care? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he's had a tremendous influence on our team, and I think that the Heisman should go to the guy that has the biggest impact on their team. And I've always thought that. And right now, people aren't. It's kind of mixed, and that's what it used to be. Used to be, as in when Paul Hornung got it, and he was actually on a losing team. It was who had the biggest impact on their team, and which I think is a better approach. And then they moved, and the Heisman's given out before the national championship, and now with all the media and everything, they're trying to speculate who's the best player for the team that's going to win the national championship and then give it to him. But trouble is, it's not played yet. So maybe they ought to have two awards: Heisman to the guy that has the biggest impact on their team, and then national championship MVP. Give him that.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point. It really does eliminate most of the country if it's just about 4 teams, guys in the playoff, and that's it.
Well, a bunch of those guys, I mean, they're just trying to guess. They're trying to guess, and then so I don't know. It's very mixed messages with regard to that now, I think.
Well, and I guess that being said, and again, it's week to week, and we're talking about Stanford here, and I don't want to get ahead of it, but the reality of it is that right now, you're in the driver's seat to win the Pac-12. You're the one-loss team in the league. You're the team that we were just walking in here and talking to the great Cougs that are here. It was on national TV. They've got the Coug logo, and they're picking the playoff and the winners for this week. And the Cougs are the team from the Pac-12 up there, and that's partly why I bring it up. And that's why it was relevant for Luke as well, because you've been, a couple ball bounces away from the Pac-12 championship game over the last few years, and that's the case. So that's kind of why I bring it up also with Gardner.
Well, yeah, and it's always tough. Our conference is deeper than any other conference. People can have the arguments of, who's the best conference, but clearly ours is deeper. From top to bottom, ours is deeper as far as. Danger and vulnerabilities from anybody you're going to play within the conference. And then we play an extra conference game besides.
Tracy Clay said that on Pac-12 TV today. He said the Pac-12 specifically is deeper than the Big Ten. And he named the Big Ten and said he was in the Big Ten, and now he's in the Pac-12, and he said Pac-12 is deeper than the Big Ten.
Well, yeah, I think it is, and I think it has been for a while. That's the biggest thing in the Pac-12 is every single week they can all get you. So,
all right, we're talking football here with Coach Leach. We do need to take one more break with just a couple minutes left. Got to take it live here at Zeppo's. Cougs and Cardinal coming up on the Washington State IMG Sports Network. Coach Leach, and we've got about 90 seconds left in the show as the Cougs take on the Stanford Cardinal. And, again, that'll be a 4 o'clock kick, so you've got that kind of mid-afternoonish kick time with about 60 seconds left or so now in my ear. The rare question, and I don't know if this is good or bad, that I got one coming my way. I know you're excited for this. This is, for me, what's your wife think of the stash? She loves the Cougs and is all aboard and gets it. Super Dave Emmerich has sworn me not to touch it as long as we're on the win streak. He's superstitious, and I'm just not getting in the way of that mojo. I don't need that kind of hate mail and Twitter nonsense. So it just is what it is, and I see the smirk on your face, Coach. So
that'll look good by the end of the season. So hold that thought.
Great. That's great. Yeah, I promised Dave if we win out, I'm not touching it for the whole year. So then that's the deal there.
Well, that's how it should be.
That'd
and
be
then of course next year this year could lead into next year.
Too. Right? He said that's what he said. It is what it is. Hey, thanks for coming. Go Cougs. Thanks for the questions. Having a great time here at Zeppo's. To Bjorn Knobloch over there in the corner doing a great job with the Facebook Live. Cherry Kylo does such a good job always. Jerry Kylo, Dom Catronio back in the U.S. Bank Network studios. Much thanks to Coach for his time and everybody here. Go Cougs. Talk to you after Saturday against the Cougs. Take on the Cardinal.